Welcome to the Sage Family Podcast,
where we explore natural, homeschooling, gentle parenting,
simple living, and family adventure.
I'm Rachel Rainbolt, the Sage Parenting Coach, coming to you from the Pacific Northwest, where I live wild and free in connection with my 3 wildlings and the Papa Bear in our fixer-upper on the beach. This is episode 40, and today I'm here with Roya Dedeaux talking about protecting passions. Roya, homeschooling mother of 2, is a licensed marriage and family therapist in Southern California and professor at CSU Long Beach with an MS in counseling and a BA in recreation and leisure studies, which is the perfect combination of her interests, how play and recreation impact mental health and relationships. So join us around the campfire and let's get living the family life of our dreams. Thank you to patron Lynette Chorus, who upped her support from $1 to $5 a month. For the price of 1 cup of coffee, you are making this show happen. Are you supporting the work you believe in through Patreon? For as little as $1 a month, you can do your part to create the world you want to live in by supporting the people doing work that makes a difference. Feed what you want to see grow at patreon.com/sagefamily. Another way you can join this movement is simply by sharing the show. Take a screenshot of your favorite episode and share it on social media. It seems like such a small thing, but it really does help to spread the message of respect for children and shift the cultural tide. The Hack School adventure this week was an educational tour of the recycling center, and it was rad. We got to learn about how it all works, see the machinery up close, and tour the facility in action, all with a guide who was knowledgeable and so passionate about his work. If you want your family culture to include environmentalism and you are taking steps toward a zero-waste lifestyle, that's great. But don't forget to connect your kids who are literal and tactile with the why. When we throw something away, what does away really mean? If you want to see photos and videos of this adventure, then head on over to Sage Parenting on Instagram and follow along. Today, Roya Dedeaux is joining me to share a conversation on protecting passions. I met Roya at last year's Life is Good unschooling conference and was impressed by her presentation on helping parents honor and support their children's interests and passions. So, of course, I had to invite her to share a conversation with me on the Sage Family Podcast so you all could listen to some of her wisdom. So why don't you tell us a little about yourself, Roya? Who are you? What are you passionate about? And how do those passions manifest in your professional and personal life?
Well, I'm glad that you mixed the professional and personal question all in one because it is kind of hard for me to separate that at this point in my life. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have a private practice and I see clients of all ages, both in my office and then online as well. So that's a big chunk of what I am and what I do. I use a lot of art. In fact, I was just looking at my office where I'm doing this right now, and I haven't put anything away yet. There's collages out or magazines out for collages, and there's clay all over and embroidery floss and all that. And then I also teach in the Recreation and Leisure Studies department at Cal State Long Beach. And it's in the department that I actually got my bachelor's from in recreation. And that's super fun because I get to tell people that I'm a play professor, which I am. It's great. I teach classes on play and leisure in contemporary society and event management and all the things that go into recreation and leisure. I also run a small business where I make and sell handmade jewelry. So crocheted and clay jewelry and accessories. And that, I mean, I've been making and selling things since I was like 7. And so at some point I stopped treating it like a hobby and I've been pursuing that a little bit more. So lots of play overlapping with my business there too. So that's the more professional side. In the in the cracks in the professional side. I've been writing a book, so my first book's coming out very, very soon.
Woohoo!
It's exciting. And then trying to do more corporate training. So doing like what they call soft skills, so assertiveness and teamwork, communication, that kind of training for businesses. So that's kind of I'm sure I'm missing something. I don't know. So
Family?
that's the business side. Yeah, and then I'm doing all that while I also have two of the best creatures on this planet as my children. They are delightful. They're Wyatt and Lillian, and they're 5 and 2 years old. And I have a fantastic park ranger husband, and random dogs and chickens and fish and things like that.
Menagerie of creatures.
Yeah, a number changes. And then, yeah, and so I was homeschooled myself, unschooled. And then my kids are also being homeschooled. So
Awesome. Okay, let's start with judgment. A scenario that you witness play out a lot in families, and I do too, is child has an interest, parent shames interest, disconnection in parent-child relationship, depression, anxiety, low self-esteem in child as they grow. Can you explain to us how judgment around our children's interests can be so poisonous?
yeah, so it's kind of amazing to me. I have a lot of parents seek me out for counseling, and I often, because I'm in private practice, I get to be a little bit fluid in terms of who I see when. So I try to figure out what the most therapeutic thing is. So sometimes the kid is my client and I see them all the time. Other times it's more the family. And if the kid is the client, then I might bring in the parents for a parent session here or there. So I often get to hear about the same, circumstance or the same conflict from the different viewpoints. And so it's always interesting to me because I work with a lot of incredibly loving parents. It's when I'm in private practice, it's a little bit of a different population than past jobs that I've had. And so people are coming to my office because they love their children and they have a wonderful family and they want to do better and they want to connect more and they're worried. And so I have loving, loving parents, attentive, engaged parents coming and saying like, I support them, I trust them, I don't know what else to do. And the kids are telling me that, oh, they don't feel supported. And so there is this big like disconnect between these parents are saying that they'll do anything. They're bringing their kids to therapy. That's a big
Yeah.
goal to start with. So they're saying they'll do anything. And then the kids are feeling like you don't support me, you don't, believe in me, all these things. And so I have been paying attention to those patterns for a while. And what I keep seeing is parents who say like, well, I support you if if your interests
Mhm.
fall in line with what my values are. So
As
sure,
long
I'll
as it's not on the computer.
right. If it's a sport, all right, we'll do it. If it's a musical instrument, absolutely. If it's a video game or TV show, nope, that doesn't meet the criteria. So a lot of that, and then a lot of judgment about the time being spent. So not
Mm.
just what the thing is, but how they're doing it. So if the kid wants to do it for 8 hours, or if the kid wants to jump around to a lot of different things, it seems like either end of the spectrum of parents are happy with. They either want if their kid's a dabbler, they want them to be in depth, and if their kid's in depth, they want them to be a dabbler. So a lot of that. So judgment of the actual interest, judgment of the time or the method. So like also, yeah, cool, go learn how to play the mandolin, but go to concerts, go to a class, don't just sit on YouTube for hours and hours.
Mm.
And then, of course, it taps into our fears as parents because we're worried about, that's where it all comes from is fear.
Yeah.
That the way or the time or whatever it is a scary thing. So lots
Yeah.
of
Well,
there.
let's talk about those fears. So there's always a fear lying beneath those judgments. Walk us through an example of how to challenge those fears.
Well, a big one I think is to stop and think about what the worst case scenario really is.
Yes.
like, really, what would happen if your kid spent another 20 minutes on the computer? What's going to happen? Will their eyes melt out of their eye socket? Because if that's going to happen, let's stop, right? Oh, I don't want that to happen either, but will it really happen? We very often in our fears, I tell people this all the time, our emotions, our fears, it's not like it doesn't keep a calendar. There's no schedule to our emotions. We feel things strongly from when we were little kids, even, that side of us, it has no age. And so when we have those kinds of fears, it tends to, they time travel. So you'll be sitting there and your kid's doing their thing, and we suddenly think we can see into the future and see what's going to happen if they spend the next 15 minutes on that game. And so to stop for a second and really think, what will happen? And then what will happen if I encourage it? What happens if I lean into it? What happens if I go pull up a chair and sit next to them? One of the things I was actually talking to somebody about today was swinging your spotlight, swinging your attention spotlight. So if your kids are interested in something that has some fearful components to you, or some pieces that you aren't really a huge fan of, a lot of parents, their first inclination is to talk a lot about those pieces with their kid, right? Like, let's focus on it. Let's talk about it. Let's process it. I'll sit here with you and do it. But I think what happens for a lot of people is then that's where you put all your energy. That's where the kids are now focused on.
Yeah.
But if you could swing your attention spotlight to, well, what could be interesting about this? What is valuable? There's other people in the world probably who also find this valuable. What is it that they find valuable about it? And so, like, video games comes up a lot. So in terms of that one, okay, great. Maybe you don't love the actual storyline or the content, but could you as the adult swing your attention spotlight to thinking about the careers in this field, or how cool the soundtrack is, or the fact that they get like real highly paid actors to do the voice acting, or how many people it took to make that frame of animation, or that kind of thing, to swing your own fears away from, or your own attention, away from just the thing that is scary and on to finding value.
Yes, I love that. I wrote down an example. My kid plays Minecraft all the time. And so to challenge that, you could say, and if they played Minecraft all the time, what might happen? And of course, then there's like the follow-up, is it really all the time?
Right, right.
Do they literally never do anything else?
Right.
But yeah, and you can keep asking that question over and over again. If they played Minecraft all the time, what might happen? Well, they might never learn any other skills. And if they never learned any other skills, what might happen? Like, to just keep going down that rabbit hole, because it always ends at a point of like ridiculousness.
Right. And then, so even if all of those things happened, I mean, to be quite frank, I still think that relationship first. So even if they do that thing to the exclusion of many, many other things, what does that do to your relationship with them, to have them feel so supported by you? Because every study on safety of kids and helping prevent any bad thing comes down to, and also not just preventing scary things, but also aiding in success of positive things, comes down to parent engagement and the relationship that they have with you. So
yeah, so if I supported this thing, what might happen? Like, what's my fear around what might happen?
Yeah, what's the fear around it? And then what's the benefit? Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about reparenting. When you first hear that voice of judgment in your mind, whose voice is it? The answer to that question can give you a helpful starting point in reparenting yourself around the ways in which you were not trusted as a child. We tend to keep repeating with our children the dynamics we most need to resolve from our own childhoods. Sometimes we have to go back to move forward. I sometimes have clients write a letter to their inner child, which can be profoundly helpful. Even if you're just saying, I see you, I'm sorry you didn't get what you needed. Just reflecting and validating. It's one of the first steps to responding to upset with your children, because feeling seen, heard, and understood is disarming, and it disarms us too. So what advice do you have for people trying to do this work?
I think a big part of it is remembering that it's your work and your job to do the work. It's the grown-up, it's the person who invited that kid to be here. You're the host, they're the guest. And so what would being a good host look like? I would like to think that if I had someone who came into my home who was allergic, for example, to something, and I loved them, I would take steps to make sure that that allergen wasn't there anymore. I wouldn't ask them to go through all the work, right? If I
Right.
wanted to be a host. And so that's part of it is we have the baggage, but we also have the skills and the perspective. Because a lot of parents will be like, I want to connect with my kid, but like I offer this thing and I offer this thing and I offer this thing, and all they want to do is this other thing. Okay, sounds like that's the thing you're doing then.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
that work is up to you. And I think finding the absolute bliss, joy, I hate the word bliss, to be honest, it's not my favorite word, but like the gleefulness in it,
Mhm.
that reparenting doesn't have to be this like laborious slog through every single thing that's ever been done wrong to you.
Right.
That reparenting, when you get to look at your kids and see what lights your kids' eyes up and then do more of that, it's healing on so many levels, and it's just plain joyful, and it's
Yeah.
rejuvenating and refreshing, and I mean, and changes things for future generations too. So I think that's a big part of it, is doing more of what lights your kids' eyes up, and watching them and paying attention to them can reparent you, and also go to
Yeah.
therapy.
And the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
Like the more you do it, the more, like, a lot of parents will come to me and say, like, well, this, like, I wasn't parented this way and it's so much harder for me. Like, it just comes naturally to you. And I just, like, I have to laugh because, like, I was not parented this way.
Yeah.
And this did not come naturally to me, but it really is, like you said, if you lean into the joyful side of it,
Yeah.
and you keep practicing it, like, it's a practice, you keep doing it every day, it just gets easier and easier, and then it does become kind of your natural, your default setting.
Well, we get a lot of talk, especially in this field, about self-care, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're feeling burned out, you need self-care. You need self-care. Mothers notoriously don't get enough self-care. And while I think that there's a lot to be said, and maybe a different podcast about the labor that moms do, and the imbalance there, I think that there's some damage that's being done in the field when we talk about self-care as being separate from kids and family.
Yes, I had a whole episode on self-care where we dove
Yeah.
into that very thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's, I think, the most like refreshing, recreating, rejuvenating, all of those words that you want out of self-care, when you can lean into the joy piece of parenting, you get
Mm-hmm.
that. And you get that so much deeper than if it's, I think, separate from.
I agree. And like you said, there's so much healing there. Like, when I choose in the moment, like, I'll hear like that voice of judgment, and I choose to lean into the joy and to join with my kids and to trust my kids. That feels healing to me. Like,
It
I'm
is.
doing
Yeah.
it for my kids, but it's also, it feels like I am, I don't know, karmically balancing things better, if that makes any sense. Like,
Yeah.
it feels good for my inner child too.
Well, like, and again, that emotional, that inner child of yours doesn't have a timeline, right? They're still 7,
Mm-hmm.
or they're still
Mm-hmm.
however old. And so
Mm-hmm.
you doing that does. It's another piece of time travel.
Okay, let's talk about reframing. Language is powerful, and the way you describe your child's engagement in their interests carries a lot of weight. In this example I used earlier, my kid plays Minecraft all the time. Like I said, is it really all the time? Like, what are some problematic language you've heard, and how can we reframe it?
Oh, so this is my favorite thing to do as a group, because I'll ask a whole, an audience at a talk. I'll say, okay, so tell me what words we tend to use to describe a kid when they're playing a video game or doing something for
Addicted,
a long time. Oh yeah.
obsessed.
Hmm. Addicted, obsessed, zombie. We start getting into these incredibly negative words. If someone talked about when I sit and crochet, and they said I was obsessed and addicted, and that's not friendly.
Yeah,
That's not
no,
supportive. That's not a nice thing to say about someone,
not
right?
the language of an ally.
No, it is not. And so when we find ourselves using those words with our children, we're immediately pitting ourselves on a different team than them. Immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I think that's a really useful exercise to do is write all those words: addicted, obsessed, zombie, all their time, whatever those phrases are, and then write another way to say that. So things like invested, passionate. They like to delve deep. They're getting to be expert level. They're dedicated. They're committed. Those are resume words. Those are the words that you want to be able to say, I'm really dedicated to this thing. And I've spent a lot of time invested to become an expert in blah, blah, blah. Like, that's wonderful. That's fantastic. And so when we can start to see the time our kids are choosing to spend on their interests as, that's the path to that dedication, that investment, our minds get changed. Our attitude about it changes just by some subtle language difference.
Yeah, the reframe is so, so powerful. And I have this meme, I don't think I've posted it yet actually, that says the no blame reframe. Like, it's something that I end up doing in my work with coaching with families a lot, where how to reframe things in a way that removes the blame. And when we're talking about like supporting our kids with their passions, I just, that always comes to the forefront of my mind. It's like the no stigma reframe.
Yeah.
How can you reframe it in a way that so that it allows you to conceptualize it as a strength and as a positive?
Well, and we use language to indicate our values of something.
Just going to say value judgment.
Yeah. I say this sometimes. My husband jokingly, I do a lot. I knit, I crochet, I sew, I do all sorts of things. And he knows the difference. We've been married a while. He understands when I'm crocheting and when I'm sewing. And when he wants to poke a little fun, he'll come in and he'll clearly see I have a crochet hook in my hand, and he'll ask, "How's your sewing?" And he's saying it tongue in cheek because we've had this conversation.
Yeah.
But a lot of parents, that would be a thing that they'd say, and they're not meaning even to be derogatory about what their kid is doing. But when you aren't paying attention to the jargon, the language, the technical side of whatever your kid's interest is, when you mix up knitting and crocheting, you're showing that you're not really paying that much attention. And when we care about things, we pay attention. And
that is so true.
Yeah. So that's another important, I think, language piece is know the specifics, know their favorite character, know why they like to play that game then and this other game another time, and know the difference between the consoles that you have, things like that.
Yeah. And this totally is not a conversation specifically about technology, but it's just another, it's such a common one. And it's there's a space for a good example where a lot of parents talk about screens and just everything falls under screens.
Well, that's really dismissive.
It's so dismissive, and it shows that you really have no connection with what they're actually interested in or what they're actually doing. Because there are so many different things that you could be doing on a screen. You could be talking with friends, video chatting with friends on a screen. You can, my oldest is writing a script with her friends in Google Docs, and they have the FaceTime and the Google Docs open, and they're writing together. And then my other kids upstairs playing Minecraft. So they're just, there's such a wide variety. So whenever parents say oh, they're obsessed with screens, it's there's so much good, juicy stuff to unpack there.
Oh, so much. One of the most fun writing sessions I had actually for my book was I sat down and thought about, I can't remember exactly the time frame I gave myself. I think I was going to do 24 hours, and that was so long. So I think I just went the last 6 hours, and I wrote down every single thing I had done with a screen. And it was vast and varied. I was very impressed with myself. But I encourage every parent who has that thought in their head to sit down and do that and think about what you did on a screen and how many people you communicated with and what things you learned and all of that. And there's two things there. One is, even if you are doing only Minecraft for as long as you're doing it, there's still so many things you're doing in that, right? And so on one hand, to say it's only valuable if you are writing scripts and finding recipes and talking to your cousins in Spain and, A, B, and C. It's not only valuable if it's a huge variety, but certainly when we just call it screens, we eliminate even the thought that there's a variety of benefits there.
Yeah. Yeah. And how silly would it be to do that in other realms of life?
Right.
Like outdoors, everything outside of your house is outdoors. Well, maybe I was in a museum. Maybe I was at the beach. Maybe there's such a, no, that's all just outdoors. And that's bad. You're obsessed with being outdoors.
I like I can't remember who did it, but someone used paper time. Like, oh, that's enough paper time. You've used up all your paper time for today. And I just thought that was the greatest comparison. No more paper time.
Okay, well, let's talk about the benefits. So, your child is engaging in this passion because it is serving them in some way. What could they be learning? What benefits could they be experiencing? Can you walk us through the benefits of a passion you've seen in a child that the parent at first didn't see?
Oh gosh, I have so many things. What should I pick? Yes. Huh. Okay, so one of my favorite examples, I had a client who was coming conflict with family, low self-esteem, severe depression, and they weren't talking to any adults in their life. So they come in, of course, not trusting me either. After, I don't know, a session or two of utter silence, I put a piece of paper next to them. And I was like, I'm going to doodle. If you would like to doodle, we just sit here and doodle. You have to be here for an hour, but do with that what you will. And she started drawing the most incredibly detailed car. That it was just incredible. And so of course, I'm like, what are you doing? This is amazing. And so she's like, well, it's an Impala. I'm like, that has to be a story.
Supernatural.
Yes. So I hadn't watched it at that point. And so I'm like, tell me the story of this car. Why is this one car? So then she blossomed. She lit up, like became radiant. And turns out she was, and by the way, names of things are all changed to help protect client confidentiality, et cetera, et cetera. So, but she turns out was like this expert in the fandom, and to the point where like cast members knew who she was, and she organized things, and she knew so much about this. So number one benefit, just this level of in-depth expertise, right? She knew this stuff frontwards and backwards. And she was able to make incredible interpersonal connections between what was happening in the show and other societal issues, family issues. It turns out there's a lot, and again, I haven't watched that much of it, although immediately following that session, I went home and watched several, and then I read some synopses. She organized huge international conversations about this. She knew so much about the production of the show and the locations that they filmed, and even things like the unions behind the productions, and it was translated into different languages, and she knew about how that worked, and she knew about entertainment law, and she knew so many connections. And her parents were missing out completely. Like, they just were not interested. They thought it was a stupid TV show. They would take away her laptop as punishment, and that was her outlet to reach this entire community. But so many benefits. I had another person I talked to who one of the things that lots of parents complain about is social media and Instagram. And so this client of mine, also very involved in Instagram, and was not hugely open with me at the beginning. And then somehow we stumbled upon their Instagram and started talking about it. And turns out that she's like admin on a bunch of different pages. And is in charge of hiring and firing people to do this. And so we started talking about her process for that, and her process of taking photos and looking at the hours of usage of her target population and photo editing. And this girl basically has a degree in marketing. That she taught herself because she was interested in what most people would look at and think were ridiculous memes. But she knows more about marketing on Instagram, about HR issues and things like that than many people who graduate with a degree in those things. So again, the benefits, it's so hard to say what they could be because I don't know.
Yeah.
They could go so many places into so many different arenas. But if we're cutting off our kids before they even get started delving into those things, then we won't know. We'll be proven right in that respect. Like self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, like a child's passion is a doorway to connection. And we can walk through that door by asking questions, by learning about the thing, offering experiences, taking them places, providing materials, connecting them with other people who share the interest, or you suggest bringing them food without disruption, which is so sweet. So share a time with us when you have done the work of getting interested and being supportive of a passion that was not appealing to you.
Well, let's see. I'm so I've got a 5 and 2-year-old. So far things have been
It
let's
can
see.
be with your husband too.
Oh, okay, there's that. There's plenty of that. I was just thinking, so my 5-year-old watches YouTube videos, and he's got one of his favorites is Chad Wildclay. I don't know if you know.
Mm-mm.
Um, so as far as I can tell, and I've watched hours and hours of Chad Wildclay. He's just a person. It's not animated or anything. It's him and a couple of his friends, and they're trying to get more views than the hackers. And they wear those Guy Fawkes masks. And so there's this whole thing about uncovering the hackers who work for Project Zorgo. And episode after episode after episode seems like the same thing. I'm over and over. I'm like, really? Okay, cool. So now we're going to uncover hacker number 9 and hacker number 15 and who is hacker number 27. And they relive it over and over. And so I was struggling a little bit with this. And so we've been watching it together, and he's been talking about it with me. And there's something about this storytelling element that he is really interested in. And he's really fascinated right now with what's real and what's not. And so we've been having all of these really great conversations about but is that real? And is that editing? Is that science? Is that magic? What's going on? And so and then the other day we were at the park, and there was a kid in one of those Guy Fawkes masks running around the playground. And oh my goodness, Wyatt runs, Mom, there's hackers here. And so we've been having even more. And then because we were sitting there watching that together, the next thing that came on at some point was the Dude Perfect channel, which I'm mesmerized by Dude Perfect. They are phenomenal. They do these like sports tricks, bottle flipping, ping pong, to flying airplanes, to basketball, football. They're just amazing. They put hours and hours and hours into doing these tricks. So we started watching those, and then he's been bottle flipping and getting really good at it. And then that has led to, we've been setting up targets all over the house to bottle flip, and we've been doing trick shots, and we went and got golf clubs from Play It Again Sports, and we've been making targets with his Nerf guns. We've been getting, his sister is super into it. So one thing after another has come from the fact that I sat down and watched Chad Wildclay.
Yes, I want people to like really take in all these examples of like how you can support your kids' interests, even if it's not something that you know about or something that you're interested in. A lot of like, one of those like misconceptions about homeschooling is like, well, I wasn't good at fractions, so I could never teach my kids fractions, so I could never homeschool. Like I don't have to know how to sew to support my kid who wants to learn how to sew.
No,
So,
absolutely
like
not.
because my teenager wanted to learn how to sew, I know nothing. Like I don't even know how to sew on a button. So, like I connected her with a friend of mine who's amazing at sewing, and she spent the weekend over at my friend's house. My friend's mother has like a whole sewing studio, and she babysat for her kids so they could go have a date night. And then in exchange, they like spent a couple days together sewing this shirt. And another friend, she asked another friend of mine if she could borrow this sewing machine she had up in her attic that she wasn't using. And we've purchased materials for her, and I've offered like there's this online class she could take. And so again, it's like I can support something that is not a shared interest. Like I don't know how to sew anything, and I don't have any knowledge to impart on the subject, but those two things are not required in order for a parent to be supportive of a child's passions or interests.
I also, two things on that. One is, it often then goes the other direction. With my mom, like she didn't crochet or do any of these like heritage arts that I'm so passionate about now. She absolutely shared, supported my interests, and then also picked up some crocheting, and she has done more and more as a result. I think my sister both sisters were really into musical theater. She ended up working at the box office, and so things like that it goes the other direction as well. And then the other piece is that I don't always even want the people that I'm trying to share stuff with to come in and like make it all about them.
Take over.
I want someone to just be there so I can be excited about it
Yeah.
and love it because they love me and be excited for me and help me if I need help, but
Hmm.
mostly just not rain on that parade, you know? Not to
Yeah. I sometimes think that's even can be part of what makes a passion is that they find this niche that where they feel like it's theirs. Like
yeah,
there's some magic to be had in that space where it's yours and like you're the family expert on this thing. It's like this really fun space for kids to get to grow into. And even if I said, okay, I'm going to go on my own and learn all the things and become an expert in
yeah,
this and then come back and teach it to you, like that would ruin it. Like you
right.
said, that's not really what they want.
No, because then it's about you and how
Mm-hmm.
you think it should be done.
Mm-hmm.
I am a big fan of telling parents to go do research and then sit on it. You know, don't tell them what
Yeah.
you've learned, but hold on to it. Wait for a car ride when they start talking about something and you're like, "Oh yeah, and I also saw blah blah blah." Be nonchalant about it, you know.
Yeah.
Hold have it as background research, but you don't have to, shout it from a megaphone the second you learn something about it.
Yeah, my 7-year-old, found some puzzles that we had downstairs and asked me to bring them up so we could do the puzzles. And I opened the puzzle and I was like, okay, so first you have to find the 4 corner pieces and then you put all the edge pieces in a pile. And he's like trying to grab for a middle piece. He's like, oh, I think this one goes here. I'm like, no, we do the edge pieces first. And then I heard those words come out of my mouth. I was like, oh God, I'm ruining this.
Walk away, hands up, walk away.
Yes. Close your mouth, Rachel. Say nothing.
Yep, that's hard. I think about that with Harry Potter. I love all things Harry Potter. I am a very
Yes.
proud Slytherin. I have loved the books forever. Like my next tattoo, I think is going to be a wand on my finger.
Awesome.
I really, and I do a lot of sessions actually with my clients based on Harry Potter and, discussing the houses and all of that kind of stuff. It's been a big part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
My kids are growing up in a land where Harry Potter already has a theme park and there's the
Mm-hmm.
movies already out. And I am not going to be able to control their experience of Harry Potter. And that is oddly a really hard thing for me. And so, in fact, once my 5-year-old, he wanted to watch something else on TV and a friend of his wanted to watch the Harry Potter movie. So he got it into his head that he doesn't like Harry Potter. And I just had to bite my tongue and be quiet there. I'm like, okay, it's okay. He's only 5. He'll come around. But he might one day be one of those who just watches the movies and never reads the book or doesn't even finish all the movies, like my husband. But
That is grounds for divorce.
it's all right. I can love muggles too. But I was just thinking about like, I'm going to really have to let him have his experience of not only that, but all sorts of things all on his own. And it's not going to be a do-over of my experience.
Yeah.
And it's going to be my work to find the value in how he's doing things and how he's exposed to things. So my job, not his. He gets
Yes.
the Harry Potter movies are exactly the same as the book's life, and that's okay.
My youngest is going to be Harry Potter for Halloween in a couple days here. Just throwing that out. We're big
That's
Harry Potter
fantastic.
fans.
That's fantastic. I think he was 2 when he was Harry Potter for
Oh
Halloween.
my
It's great.
God, that's so cute. Okay, let's talk role modeling. Julia Bogard was on this podcast talking about how role modeling is merely a byproduct of awesome adulting. Whatever language resonates with you is a-okay by me. I just want to see you out there living your passions too. I see this as one of the most important things I do as a homeschooling mom. So what do you recommend for mamas out there who have lost touch with their passions?
Well, that's a hard one. Because again, I'm not a huge advocate for like go off and spend 3 days without anybody every week.
Yeah.
I don't because I don't think because you're not really role modeling if you disappear, right? Like
No, there's no integration. For it
right,
to have role modeling value, there has to be integration. You have
right.
to be living it like in connection with your kids.
Yes. So I do a lot of things. I'm playing with clay right now as we're talking because I can't keep my hands still. I crochet, I do that kind of stuff, and my kids are there with me. And I have to say, I had this moment kind of recently. It used to be like I'd have my fancy clay and I could give them Play-Doh and it would all be fine. My 2-year-old has suddenly realized I was tripping.
Not
And
the
now,
same.
no, it is not. And so she wants to do exactly what I'm doing. And I had to have a little talk with myself about this is what I want. Like, yep, she's going to grab at the things that I'm making and she's going to dry out that slightly more expensive stuff. But really, how much is it? And would I spend that on her, in other ways? And can you put a price on sitting together and playing with clay? And so I try to integrate. So I try to like, okay, yeah, this is mine, this is what I'm doing, and this is yours, but let's sit at the table together and let's do it. And you know what? Yeah, you want that color? Sure, I can get more. I think we build up this false, like, I don't know, it's good for me to think about the actual price of things. She takes a whole chunk of Sculpey, for example, and I start to go, and then I go, what? That's $3. That's okay. If she asked me for $3, I would hand her,
Yeah.
$3 bills. She can have that. So again, kind of a reality check of the evidence in front of me. And then I don't know quite how to say this, but like doing it, just making time for it. My kids, I run several businesses, so they see me busy and doing all sorts of things, but they also see me do this and they see me and I talk about like I'm going to put on this song because it cheers me up and makes me happy while I'm doing this. And we talk about, hey, let's go go clean up the backyard really, really fast so that we have time to go do this other thing that we've been wanting to do for a week. So we can't get to everything right away. We can't spend all the money right away. But I feel like there's a lot of out loud about making decisions about what to do. And that a good chunk of that has to do with what are we going to play and what kind of thing are we going to do. Also, so if there are parents who are trying to figure out things to play with, I'm a huge fan of subscription boxes. I think those are really good ways to dabble a little bit and have kind of an all things included box of like, okay, I'll try watercoloring or I'll try playing with, I don't know, robotics.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah, go dig through those supplies of, when you bought stuff from charter schools way back when, see what you got, what you've ever used. But it doesn't have to be a lot of time, really. I don't know. I think play, just having an attitude of playfulness about it. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to suddenly like go get a ceramics wheel and kiln and be a ceramicist now. Just get a chunk of clay and play with it while you're sitting watching TV. Just be a little gameful.
Sampling. Like I sometimes encourage people to like just sample. Like if you're looking for a new physical movement practice, but you're not sure what you enjoy or what you might be passionate about in that arena, like sign up for a trial class, like one new trial class each month, like in a totally different thing, like rock climbing 1 month, yoga another month, karate the next one, like just mix it up, like, and just try different things. And then through those experiences, you're going to learn things about yourself, and some things are going to spark and other things are going to fall totally flat. And that's okay. Yeah. Like that's all part of the experience. Just like, when homeschooling our kids, like we want them to have experiences and be exposed to different things, but we sometimes have a hard time giving ourselves that same space. Like we don't want to spend money or time on something that we're not 100% in love with, but like you're not, that's not how it works.
What's that? There's that, I saw a meme go around that says, you don't have to be good at it for it to be good for you.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like that because we sometimes think also that, I crochet and I am relatively good at it and I enjoy it, but I'm doing it for lots of reasons. If I'm doing something just for that kind of self-care, trying to, find an interest, I don't have to start out being good at something, that delve into it. Also, put it out there. Talk to people. Say, hey, what kind of thing could you take me to? Are you, do you have a kid in roller derby? I'd like to go. Do you have annual passes somewhere? Can you bring me? I think being out loud about this kind of intention can be helpful. And then take advantage of city recreation. Rec and parks departments have a ton of things, a ton of places. One of my favorite things to do right now is find random cool things around the places I go all the time based on my Pokemon Go games. Because you find like, oh, I didn't know there was a mural behind the street that I've lived out my entire life.
Yes.
Okay, well, there's a Pokestop there. So I do think that it often is more of an attitude than any of the specific things, really. This idea of gamefulness, I think, is an important one.
I completely agree. I have told the story to my kids many times that when I was a freshman in high school, a friend of mine was on the gymnastics team and she invited me to join. And I was terrible at it. Like, I'm terribly inflexible. Gymnastics is just not my jam. And I had more fun doing that than I had doing the things that I really excelled at and did more seriously. There's something about when you're not great at something, you're kind of freed from the like pressure of doing it well. And you can just show up and have fun and get something different out of it than you get out of the other things that you do more seriously.
Yep. It's redefining what success is.
Yes.
I recently, I switched gyms from a gym that had no workout classes to a gym that has tons of workout classes. And I love workout classes.
I love them.
And this month, October was, they set goals for you every month. And this one was like, if you do 10 different classes or 10 classes at all, not different classes, 10 classes, you get entered into a raffle. And I made my own little goal that I was going to try to go to a different one every time. And it was so fun. I tried so many things I have never done before. I was a big, uncoordinated, exuberant person right in the middle of that very mirrored room. But it was so fun. I can't even tell you. And I don't know. It felt like it opened doors. I met people. I have new goals. I got an hour of sweat-soaked adrenaline each time I did. And then that sense of like just extra accomplishment, so much pride that you tried it and did it.
Yes. And when you're living like an integrated life with your kids too, like look for inspiration in the life that you're living. So like I took my kids to a kids self-defense class once, and I kind of really enjoyed it and made friends with the instructor, and that led me down this rabbit hole I ended up training in Krav Maga very seriously for years, and I loved it. Like I absolutely loved it. It was a big passion of mine for a while. And like now I'm learning to play the ukulele because my youngest is learning to play the ukulele, and he asked for some help with because they're learning to read music, and I already knew how to read music. So in order to help him with that, I kind of had to learn along with him. And I'm finding that I'm loving it. I'm looking up all these new songs online, and I'm learning to play all this new stuff. And it's really, really fun. And for that like integration role model piece, sometimes it's just kind of leaving the door open. Like I do yoga every morning, and I have extra yoga mats sitting right next to mine. So the kids don't always join me in yoga. Sometimes they're in the room with me, sometimes they're not. But there's always that door, is kind of always open, and they're always like witnessing it and laughing with me when I fall out of a pose, or like that's just kind of part of it. And then one other thing I wanted to speak to specifically was the money piece, because I consider myself a minimalist, and we do talk a lot about minimalism on this podcast. But for some people, the minimalism looks like only purchasing like 5 toys for your kids, and they're like wooden blocks and like Waldorf style toys. But I am a big fan of giving my kids the materials to allow them to fully play out their present passions. So like when one of my kids was into Peppa Pig, like we bought I absolutely have no qualms about buying the Peppa Pig figures. And for like a solid 5 months, we played with those Peppa Pig figures every freaking day. And then the passion was done. And so then we posted them in our Buy Nothing group, and another family came and picked them up. And so like to think about when you're investing money in these things, it's not that you should only buy things that are going to last 18 years. Like I'm not going to invest a penny in it unless you commit to following through with it for a decade-long practice. It's more like I said with the sewing thing, we borrowed things. She went with other people. Like it's more about you're paying for the experience. Like you said with your daughter in the clay. Like would I pay $3 to sit with her and work with clay and have her get her fingers into it and have that moment with her? Like yes, that's absolutely worth $3.
And what else have I spent $3 on today? Because that's a value statement too, right?
Yep.
Would I spend that on myself in some other way? Would I spend it on the dog? Would I spend it on, just where else? Where am I spending money? And just being really realistic about that, because that absolutely is a big values piece. And then I really do think that because money, space, resources, I suppose, in general, and our values, I mean, where we spend and how we use our resources is a direct values statement. And so the first thing I think is just to be honest with ourselves about what they are and how they're being displayed. And then I do think that this sense of abundance can happen whether you are a minimalist like yourself or a Uber collector, like
Maximalist.
a maximalist. Yes, I love that. Actually, I just saw a home decor magazine about maximalism, and it spoke to me definitely. But I was just thinking about. I'm working with my children out loud a lot to talk about, are we getting joy, out of these things? Yeah, cool. Let's keep them. We haven't, let's put them in the garage and let's check in again in a month. And do you think your little cousin would like them more?
Yes.
So we're doing more of that, but if you are a minimalist, but you have a collector child, again, I do think that it's on you as the adult to help your kid be, support them at where they're at, not at where you wish they were. And I think that's true of, spousal relationships as well. My husband would like to live in a house with nothing in it.
One white chair.
Yep. I would like to live inside of a Joann's. So, that's a struggle. So I care about him and he cares about me. And so we acknowledge, like, I'm going to need some space for my stuff. And I acknowledge that it should probably be a space where a door can get closed. So he doesn't have to look at it. So I think that no matter what your values are, your philosophy, your lifestyle, if you've got the attitude going in that you are, you love this person and you really want to figure out ways to support them in it, then the other stuff's logistical. The other stuff is brainstorming. The other stuff is going online and asking people, hey, anybody have any clever ideas for this? But if you're coming from a place where there's still fear around that. Like if I say yes to them having this thing, then suddenly our house is going to be overrun and we're going to be wasteful, materialistic people. If you're coming from that place, then you're going to be resistant to solutions and you're not going to be thinking about it from a, how do we all say yes and how do we support each other? So the attitude, I think, is a big piece of it. The solutions come.
Yes, absolutely. I had a coaching client who the little girl was, taking things from different people and experiences that felt special to her. And so in order to help with that, sort of the presenting problem in those kinds of scenarios tends to be like, bad, stop it,
Yeah.
And of course the family who came to me was not saying that, but
right.
So we set up shelves on her wall that were her collector shelves where she could display all her special things, and we got her a special bag that she could carry with her with a little notebook and a pen so she could write down where she got the special thing, and she, because we found a yes, she would invite her mom in, so her mom would say oh, I want something, a memento to bring for this moment, and they would look around for something that would fit so beautifully on her shelf, maybe a pebble from the entranceway of the store they went to that she had a great time in, or whatever it is. So you can always find a yes, you can find a way to support your kids' passions in a way that honors their natural way of being.
Yeah, we very often go straight to we can't do it because, right?
Yeah.
We jump there. I had someone that was talking in a group about they had a lot of kids and limited space. And so they were feeling really bad about my kid keeps asking for their own room. They keep asking for their own room and we just can't. Does she know how much money we make? We just how are we supposed to do this? And so that guilt was turning into anger towards the kid, as you would imagine. And so they came and they said, okay, so how, what are we supposed to do here? It's just conflict all the time. And then, so the question was asked, well, why do they want their own room? What is the need? And she goes, oh, I haven't really asked. She jumped so quickly to, but we can't because, and we're doing our best, right?
Yeah.
And so then it turns out that she shares sleeping space with many siblings and doesn't like the light when she's trying to sleep, and wanted to be able to hang pictures and magazine cutouts and stuff. She wanted to decorate a space. So knowing that, we figured out PVC pipe would be a really easy way to like put up a frame, and then they could hang really heavy curtains on the PVC pipe so that she could close them and there would be darkness, and then she could pin stuff to the to the curtains. She was thrilled. Everybody was
Yes.
happy. And again, taking a minute to stop and think, okay, we're going to figure this out. Yes. Now what? Right?
Yes, to how to find the yes, like get at what the underlying need is, and then find a yes for supporting that need.
Yep.
Beautiful. Okay, let's move into our Q&A. I posted in my Sage Parenting Tribe on Facebook and in the Sage Family Patreon community that we were going to chat about protecting passions today, and asked if anyone had any questions about it. Sarah wants to know how to support being multi-passionate when society wants people to pick one.
Well, you are talking to, what is it, preaching to the choir here. I'm sitting here. It's funny because I had clay in my hand, but I also have crocheting next to me. So I'm just kind of going back and forth between crocheting and clay as we talk. So one thing is this idea of society supporting people being single-minded in something. I would first ask my clients to examine that piece. Is it society, or like, why is that piece jumping out at you? You know, do you find some value in that? Do you have messages around like we need to be diving solely into one thing, or that's the only way we can, you know, be an expert? Is that really the case now, or is that a leftover idea from another culture, era, time, anything? So just another quick, you know, reality check of what's really happening. And then, so wait, ask the question one more time. There was a beginning part.
How to support being multi-passionate when society wants people to pick one.
So first examining the veracity of that assumption first, and then I would say to support the multiple passions in the same way that you would support if your kid had one passion. I think still looking at your actual real kid, you know, never mind what society is saying, but what is your kid asking for? What lights your kid's eyes up? How can you support your kid? And today maybe it's ukulele and tomorrow it's Minecraft, but the result of what you're doing is the same, whether or not it's that or, you know, the musical Cats for 10 years. All true examples. So I think for all practical purposes, it's the same, but your own work might be around why that matters to you to be different than what society or what you perceive society to be saying.
Yes, to get out from under the weight of that perceived judgment of others. I think there is a very real cultural phenomenon. I've actually read a fair bit about it, which was helpful through the financial independence community or doorway or whatever, but where there is a cultural phenomenon where we want people to go really, really deep in one area, like from an occupational standpoint. And then we get so drilled down so deep in this one area, like we go into our cubicle and we do that job for 8 hours a day, and that's all we have time for. We don't have time or the energy to dip into any other buckets. And so then we kind of have to like hire out if we need somebody to fix, you know, this dent in the wall, or hire, because we have this one, we have to go so deep in this one thing, and how really that's not how humans are wired to be at all. So it's really more natural to be
a dabbler.
Yeah, to kind of, I mean, dabbling is definitely like part in that normal, healthy spectrum of being human. So, and it's really, really valuable. Like, it's actually really good. Yeah, to be able to like fix your sink and do accounting and like to.
Well, so one of the interesting things from a career perspective that we're seeing now are like Ivy League schools, higher education, their admissions and people who are helping connect them with careers and stuff are saying that it's not so much the knowledge, the facts, those things that they're looking for anymore. It's attitude, and it's divergent thinking, it's creativity, it's problem solving, it's that kind of thing. And so when I've got parents who are worried about their kids in that respect, that they're not spending enough time on anything. I ask them to look, I do ask them to look for the things that they are spending lots of time on, but it might not be an interest. It might be like, for example, I jumped. Oh my goodness, did I jump? I dabbled I dabbled in dabbling. I mean, that was my thing. It still is. But at some point I could turn around and look backwards at where I had been, and I could see themes. I could see that everything I did had to involve people, right? I wasn't going to go off and spend time alone. I was always with people. So that was one big theme. Another big theme at some point I could turn around and see in hindsight was, making art, but I wasn't doing fine art. I was usually something with my hands, but again, it was the process of it. I would make ceramics, but I would never glaze them. It was with my hands. So people with my hand, and so as you dabble, you can turn around and see themes, but it's not always interest-based themes. I wanted to figure out how people worked in different situations and different things like that. And so that's one of the things that I do encourage the parents who are worried about that. Their kids are still there's themes there somewhere.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Behavior, so to take some, maybe again, switch your attention spotlight a little bit to finding that instead of, they haven't played piano for 18 years, but maybe they've been interested in, oh gosh, what happens when people all get together in groups for a while now, or, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I love that. That's really like helpful. It's something really tangible that people can turn to help them with all of that. I love that. And I think too, like in today's job market, it is more reflective of that. Like entrepreneurship is huge now. And like I, personally as an entrepreneur, I mean, if all I did was like, because I have my degree in MFT. Like, so if all I did was the coaching piece, like I wouldn't have a business. I have to do web design and marketing. And
I didn't get a single class in any of this. So I'm also an MFT, right? I did not get a single second of business related information in my master's program. It was 100% clinical. And while I'm grateful for the depth that they went into that, as a private practice owner, I would have really benefited maybe from like here's how you do any bookkeeping, or here's what marketing is. And that was all stuff I had to do later. And a lot of people that I knew in school who wanted to do the same thing, who wanted a private practice, when they got out of school and they started to try to do these other pieces, they stopped doing therapy altogether because they didn't want to do that. And
a lot of people can't tolerate the risk of failure without the, there's no direct instruction, and they've received so many messages of like shame and judgment and, oh God, I can't I can't do the marketing thing. Like, I don't know anything about that. I won't be good at it.
They wouldn't try. They wouldn't let themselves experiment and fail. And to me, like there are days where being a therapist is absolutely exhausting, but I really, really love, I mean, it sounds silly, but I even like to do my month end, bookkeeping. I like the marketing. I like the fact that it's different every single time. And I do credit the dabbling piece with that it's set up very well for me in that, because I'm not getting bored.
I agree. Okay, I'm going to sneak in a second Q&A here for you.
Yeah.
So Melissa wants to know what to do if you lose steam. Like, you have a passion, you invest in it, you're all in it, and then you lose steam. What should we do then?
Stop.
No, I was really curious if that's what you were going to say, because I kind of had the same reaction at first to that question. Was like, well, you don't.
I would ask them, are you talking about yourself or are you talking about your kid? Because I do think that happens a lot more with parents, that they're like, okay, so I'm going to be supportive of your interest, right? Yep, I'm going to do it. I'm a good, invested parent. And here we go. I'm going to drive you to the things, and I'm going to buy this stuff, and I'm going to learn the language. And, you're all on board with that. And then your kid's like, yeah, I'm kind of done with that. And it can be such a letdown for parents who have all this like good pent up parenting energy and then nowhere to put it. And so a big thing on that is so two things. If you've signed your kids up for things that other people are going to be impacted by, I think first off, don't sign them up for that much of that kind of stuff. Especially when they're younger. And by younger, I mean teenage or younger. Because we're asking something of them that they can't always really commit to.
Yes.
And so try to decrease the number of instances that happens. And the other piece is talk a lot about that. If we do this, this is what it's going to mean. It's going to mean, even if you've got other stuff that you want to do at that time, we have to get up and leave. Or it means that the money is going to go there and not somewhere else. And it's not just going for 3 months, but can you envision the fact that it's going to go past Christmas and New Year's and Valentine's Day? Like that's, put it into some different perspectives. Try not to work harder at it than your kid is.
Yes.
Don't be more invested in it than they are. And a big part of this is because I really do think that people should be allowed to stop things that they don't want to do anymore.
Yes.
I think this idea that we have to keep going because we said we were going to, or because someone else might feel bad, is one of the most dangerous thought processes that we can teach young people. I think that's what keeps people often in unhealthy, abusive relationships.
I was just going to say abusive relationships. Yep. If we feel like we have failed, if we quit something, if we feel like this thing is no longer a good fit for me.
Right. Or our sense of what's good or bad is overwhelmed by something, like we might upset someone else. And so we stay silent. I think that's awful. And so I think I'm a big fan of, if someone is feeling like this isn't working for them anymore, and you've set it up as much as you possibly can so that you're not asking it of them a lot and they knew going in and that kind of thing, I'm all for stopping. I also think that if you know you can stop, you're willing to try more.
Yeah.
So if I knew that if I was gonna try the ukulele, but my parent was gonna sign me up for a year's worth of lessons, and so even if I didn't like it, I still had to keep going, I would never pick up a ukulele.
Yeah.
But if I knew that if I picked it up and it wasn't really for me, and I could switch to the trumpet and try that for a little bit, I would try so many things.
Yeah, you're going to give it your all when you're there.
Right. And the other big piece of it is, even if you stop, so even if you've run out of steam, you still got something from it before you ran out of steam. And that's valuable. It's not negated by the fact that you only did 3 weeks of it, not 10. I mentioned the ceramics thing earlier. I really love to throw ceramics. Throwing on a wheel is still one of my all-time favorite things to do. I couldn't care less about the finished product. I don't care about glazing. I just don't. I never have. I would throw hundreds of cups in my ceramics classes, and I would either just dunk them all in the same glaze so that I was done with it, or I'd hand them out to other people and let them glaze them. I couldn't care less. But if someone said you have to glaze every single thing. Oh, and by the way, my first jobs were in the ceramics department as a lab tech. I then got hired by a ceramics supply company because people saw how interested in all of this I was. So, but if someone had told me every single one of these hundreds of cups that you throw, you have to glaze at this level and care about it this much, I would have stopped ceramics, and those opportunities would have been shut off to me. So we still get things, even if we don't understand what the other person might have gotten out of it. We got something. It's not negated. So if you've lost steam, let yourself relax.
Yeah, I love that advice.
Recover, or I don't know. You don't need steam. It's okay.
Don't hold it quite so tightly.
Nothing is wrong with you because you don't want to do it forever.
As like a general rule of thumb, I say with kids, for parents to not ask their children to commit for more than 1 month, because they can't conceptually wrap their heads really around longer periods of time than that. 1 month is like a good rule of thumb. So if my kids want to sign up for something, I try to sign up for things where like you're paying for 1 month at a time. There are some things that they have wanted to do, like if they're going to be in a play, like it's a 6 month long thing. Yeah. Like we would have a long conversation about how the other people are going to be depending on you. So we can't sign up for this unless we are prepared to commit all the way through, like you said, like it's going to go past Christmas and into New Year's and then right around grandma's birthday. Like that's when, So, but I really try to do activities that we can commit to for a month at a time that I knew.
Piece is that you'll know your own kids, right? Like if you're watching and paying attention, I know for myself, for example, I don't want to be held to something like that. But my son, he's anything physical he will do forever and ever and ever. And so I signed him up for 8 weeks at a time of this kids soccer thing. But I also I'm not signing him up for a team yet, because it's still more important for us to be able to leave for a weekend and go to conferences, for example. So we've missed several weeks because we've gone to conferences. Whereas if he was on a team, we might not. We'd have to have conversations about it as a family. Is that what we're willing to do? So he still gets to do his, no games involved soccer practice for 8 weeks, and then another 8 weeks and another 8 weeks, because it's something that it's casual enough that we can skip. And
Yeah.
I think that's something we forget too, that when our kid is interested, we immediately jump to, well, we've got to sign them up for a class.
Yeah.
And we don't have to. There's so many ways to support that interest without a class or without a time commitment involved.
So true. Yeah, without something where you're paying like $500 a month for 9 months.
Right. Yeah, Wyatt was recently, he's really interested in mini golf, loves it, tries to talk us into taking him every day. He wakes up and goes, can we play golf? And his dad he takes him more than I do. And so he just loves it. And at some point, even we were like, oh gosh, should we like look into a, kids golf class or something? And I was like, no. We already do karate 3 times a week and we do soccer and we have, all of these other things. I'm like, I'm not adding another. So I went to Play It Again Sports and I found a couple of golf clubs and golf balls for 25 cents. And he loves it. He's thrilled. We pull those out almost every day and he makes just a little course on our front lawn with cups. And I am so glad I remembered my saner self one out there. We did not need another golf class.
Yes.
Lots of ways to support that.
A class is not the only way to support a passion.
No, it is not. Absolutely.
Love that. All right, let's move into our deep dive. The show notes can be found at sageparenting.com/podcast40, where you can also subscribe and get future show notes sent right to your inbox. So what, Roya, are your favorite resources for people to dive deeper into this topic? And of course, you have to talk about your own book, which is coming out soon, and I'm very excited for it.
Yay, yeah. So my book, the name changed, I think, like yesterday. It was called Protect Their Passions, which is still the name of the workbook that you can get at royadedeaux.com. And the workbook is all on this topic, how to support kids' passions. And it's only going to be available for a little while longer. And then the book, that's the expanded version, I believe will now be called Connect with Courage. So that will be available from Forever Curious Press. So if you go to forevercuriouspress.com/Roya, ROYA, you can sign up to be notified when that comes out. And it's a combination of like these kinds of big picture, why we should support our kids and the impact it has on mental health, with the more logistical brainstorming, solution-oriented piece. So I'm excited for that. And then a couple other resources, and I'm sure I'll think of more and I'll have to send them to you, but a big one for me because, of course, we started out talking a lot about video games and computer games and stuff, and that does tend to be a hot topic for worried parents. But Jane McGonigal has 2 books, and her first is called Reality is Broken, and her second is called Super Better, and both of them are phenomenal. In fact, her whole website is amazing. It's janemcgonigal.com. She has 2 TED Talks. Both are great. Reality is Broken focuses a lot more on video games and computer games and the benefits and the research backing it. So if you know or love a gamer, it's mandatory reading. You all must go forth.
I have never heard of her, and her last name is amazing as a Harry Potter fan, and I'm going to go read those books like right away.
She's phenomenal. I use both books in my classes. Right now, Reality is Broken is required reading. I got to meet her a few years ago and play a game with her. I drooled on her, I think. I think there was actual drool. She was amazing. And actually, she has a twin sister who's also doing phenomenal research in the field of positive psychology. Her name is Kelly McGonigal. So, powerhouse family.
I'm so excited to read this book because I have not found a book that really resonated with me on this topic. And my husband has a master's degree in video game design and works for the biggest company in the world and makes his living, doing this. So I'm a big fan of the value of technology.
So she was a video game designer, and she was the first person in the world to do her PhD dissertation on video games. And so she worked, I don't know if she still does because now she's huge, but she worked for the Future Institute in the Bay Area and has designed games for, so basically what she has done is looked at why we love games so much and why we spend so much time playing games and why we can accomplish. She looked specifically at World of Warcraft in Reality is Broken and the hours that we spend doing these quests on World of Warcraft and what would happen if we could apply that to real world problems. And so then she designed games like the Oil Crisis game and things like that. And so Reality is Broken, it's nonfiction and it's research, and I cried while reading it.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Beautiful. Her second book is called Super Better. So, and it's, again, every bit as phenomenal as Reality is Broken, but it's a little bit more general in terms of it's talking about how to live a more gameful life, and how to basically accomplish epic wins and overcome barriers and obstacles through living things more gamefully. And so it's phenomenal as well. And it's I'm a narrative therapist.
Me
and
too.
Better.
That was my theoretical mode. I mean, technically I'm a coach now, but that was my jam.
Great. Oh, that's so funny. Well, that makes sense because we get along. But yeah. But so you'll love Super Better because she does a lot of like externalizing the bad guys and talking about resilience and looking at evidence of other, not just the one story, one narrative that you're telling yourself, but looking at other evidence through power-ups and quests. And so you'll really like Super Better. And then there's a website with Super Better and an app that goes with it. So both, or all of that is, yeah.
That's amazing. Have you ever heard of the game Mightier?
No.
It's like we just got it in the mail. This is a bit of a tangent, but we just got it in the mail because I wanted to it seems like something really good for me to be able to recommend to my clients. So my kiddo is trying it out, but it's like an emotional regulation game. It's like an iPad app, and they wear this heart rate monitor, and they have to play these games, and really like a lot of like externalization and personification around like when your warrior takes over and all that jazz. And my kid, who's 14, actually has sort of hijacked it where she plays like really good games on the game system and wears the heart monitor, and it's
biofeedback.
Yes,
How
yes,
cool.
it's like gamified biofeedback. Yes,
that's neat. Oh, I'm gonna have to look at that. That is so cool.
Okay, sorry. Continue.
That is, very neat. Oh no, that's okay. And so Jane McGonigal too. If you go to Show Me the Science, she has a whole. JaneMcGonigal.com leads to all good things, but she collects. She not only does her own research, but she collects all of the research pertaining to all of this. So all of the stuff in the book, the TED Talk, everything, it's all there, and it's so good. And she's just an exuberant public speaker, and she's phenomenal. And then Peter Gray is another good person to, he has very accessible articles on the importance of play.
Yeah, he came on this podcast, and it's my most popular episode of the entire catalog. I am a massive fangirl, and he endorsed my Sage homeschooling book, and I may have literally cried when that happened.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I've heard him speak several times, and he's and listeners will obviously know because they heard him, but just the proponent for unstructured play, especially because I think, and my degree, my bachelor's is in recreation, and a big part of recreation is structured play. And so it's been kind of an interesting piece to see jobs in the recreation industry go up, but unstructured playtime decrease.
I bet you have been the best kind of thorn in people's sides.
I like to think that too. I do like to think that. So Peter Gray, go forth and read. And then a good friend of mine, Shannon, her book just got published, and it's called Love More. And it's the sweetest book that you'll ever see. And it's also published by Forever Curious Press. And it's just a list of wonderful, sweet ways just to add connection to your kids, and it's wonderful. And it's the kind of book where you could just pick it up and flip to a page and be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna do that thing. Awesome. And it's just, it makes you have all the warm and fuzzies, or you could read it from cover to cover, and every bit of it's good. So Love More. And she's doing right now a Love More challenge on Instagram, so you'll find. Yeah.
Well, we are going to link to all of these things in the show notes, so you don't need to be trying to like drive your car and write all this down. As long as you're subscribed, you're going to get all these links. You can get them on the website too. Roya Dedeaux, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this conversation with me. It was really, really, really fun, and I look forward to making up reasons for us to collaborate more in the future.
Yay, me too. Especially now I know you're a narrative therapist.
Yes.
We have things to talk about. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really, really enjoyed it. I took a couple pictures while we were talking, so if anyone is interested, go find me on Instagram. I'm Roya Dedeaux Therapy and Roya Boya Handmade.
Yes, go find her, go follow her.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This has been a delight.